Question 3 asks us to draw a graph comparing a untrained person and a trained person's insulin response to steady state exercise. This is the graph that I drew. The y-axis is going to represent the percent change of the insulin in the blood, and the x-axis is going to represent the time spent exercising at the same intensity. This further bottom down line is going to represent an untrained person, and this upper line is going to represent a trained person. So in the trained person, you can see that at the start of exercise and all throughout exercise, insulin is going to be increasingly inhibited. So at first we have a good amount of it in our bloodstream from just eating and living and stuff. We need to break down the sugars in our blood so our blood sugar can maintain a healthy level. And as we start exercising, we release epinephrine, norepinephrine, and we also start breaking down a lot of glucose. So we want a lot of glucose in our blood to break it down and use it for energy for muscle contraction. So as we're exercising, we want more and more glucose in our blood to be used for the muscle contractions. So we want to inhibit the release of insulin more and more. So we're going to see less and less insulin in our bloodstream as we continue to exercise. Now, and that's for you'll see that for both trained people and untrained people. Now the thing is, when we're trained, we inhibit, or when we're untrained, we inhibit that response of insulin release a lot, and when we're untrained, we don't inhibit it quite as much. The reason for this is because as we become more adept to training and our body becomes more it adapts to what stresses we've put it through, and it gets better at responding to those stresses. We also are going to be using fat as a fuel source a lot more than we were when we were untrained. Because of this, we're not using as much glucose for muscle contraction. So a lot less of it is getting used up from our blood. So a lot more of it is just staying in the blood. So we have increased blood sugar levels. And we need insulin to store that glucose that is in our blood to maintain a healthy blood sugar level. But if we have more of the glucose in our blood because we're not using as much of it, then we need to inhibit insulin a lot less than we did when we were untrained, so that we can have the insulin there, and that can break down and store glucose for us so our blood sugar doesn't get too high.